everyone again to, this is our second virtual conversation in the Clean Energy in the Age of Coronavirus series. And we, you know, the last session was great. We had two journalists who talked a lot about the various issues of the day. And today we have two of Ohio's leading clean energy business leaders. We have Geoff Greenfield from Third Sun Solar and Steve Melink from Melink Corporation. There they are. We will be having two more of these in the coming weeks, so please watch for the announcements of that. You can find them on our website at greenenergyohio.org. And one of them will be nonprofits and one of them will be academic. So I'm not going to go through the bios of our guests because we did send those out and they are available, and I hope you all take some time to look them over. But rather than take the time today, I'm going to skip over that, and probably a lot of you know them because they are very well known. I'm going to give a few short instructions for those of you who might want to ask questions, and you can do it two different ways. First of all, everyone will be muted until we open up for questions. If you want to raise a question, and I'm making sure I get this right, you push the raise your hands button that's on the bottom of Zoom. You'll find that button by pushing participants, and then you'll see a list of participants, and at the bottom of that, a little hand button. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and when you're called on, you will be unmuted. You can also ask a question through the chat function. That's at the bottom of your screen, and you can just type in your question, and in which case I will read the question to our guests. You don't have to come on screen to ask your question. So you have two different ways. With that, I would like to start our conversation, and with a broad question, actually. Some companies paused their on-site work during this past 3-month period when Ohio was shut down. Others did keep doing some installations and other work, but taking new safety precautions. Customers, I know a lot of customers, both residential and commercial, had financial concerns suddenly, and that might have affected their decision-making. So I guess my question to you is, how do you think the shutdown affected the renewable energy business in Ohio overall, and what will it take to return to normal? Either of you can start, whoever wants to start.
Okay. Hi, Jane, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Our business, we declared ourselves an essential business back in March. Being that we're serving we're part of the energy infrastructure side of things, and we also do a lot of work for customers that are involved with food, and so that's obviously considered an essential part of our living and being sustained. But I think overall, our energy efficiency business slowed down by more than 50% over the last couple months. And, we're all aware of how it has affected different industries in different ways. But in my judgment, this is a pause. It's slowing things down, but it's not going to affect the end result. And that is, the world is moving towards a clean energy future. And that has not changed one iota in the grand scheme. So it may have slowed things down a few months, but the economy seems to be opening up, and we're only, when I say only, down maybe 10 to 13% unemployment. It's a lot better than it was the previous month. So I think we're turning things around. Hopefully the virus won't rebound in a strong way, and will only continue to recover in a good way. So, Geoff?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. And also thanks for tuning in, and thanks Geo and Jane for hosting this. Yeah, what a crazy world we're living in. We saw the virus coming on strong and were quite concerned about it. And the governor declared us an essential business. Construction in Ohio was typically allowed to work. But we were kind of morally not sure what was the right thing to do, both for our direct employees as well as our customers. And we all have lots of friends in healthcare. And the whole concept of doing anything we can to flatten the curve made sense. So we went to work from home for all of our engineering team and education team and administrative team. And we laid off of our installers. And once we found out that they could actually get a pretty, safe, good financial, stable payroll on unemployment, and we paused for 6 months or 6 weeks. One of the other considerations there is, unlike Steve's business that does primarily commercial, we're doing a lot of residential stuff, and we need a lot of permits and inspectors. And so even if we kept working, we wouldn't be able to get permits and we wouldn't get inspections. And then a lot of our residential customers, where we're going into people's households, we pulled some of them, and they were okay with us being in the basement, but weren't really excited about us coming to their houses, going up into the attic. And so we decided to just hit the pause button. And then we turned back on after that pause, when the inspectors and the permit offices started to come back online. And we've been working with a new safety protocol, just like we have, safety glasses and ladders and everything else. Now we've got safety COVID masks and hand washing stations that we set up at our job sites, commercial and residential. And it's a different world that we're in, being super cautious, but we're kind of used to it by now. Our customers are happy that we're installing and appreciate our safety protocols. To the core point there, I think it's going to slow down the 2020 that clean energy was on track to having. And I think the primary impact is financial confidence. When people's savings crashed, they weren't necessarily about to drop big checks or sign up for financing on large projects. Luckily, it seems, at least right now, that the markets have returned and people's retirement funds are close to where they were a year ago. And our phones are ringing. We're signing deals. We just signed a couple of contracts today. It's always great to start the day with contracts. So our commercial business never slowed down. Those are typically multi-year processes and didn't slow down. But our residential business just took a steep dive as everyone started social distancing and focusing on safety and health. And luxuries like their dream of going solar took a second seat. That's turned back on, and we're up to about the volume that we would expect at this time of year. So that's great.
That is great. Well, Steve, you mentioned that the energy efficiency piece went down. Would that be because there's more, you have to get inside a house, or why do you think that would change?
Yeah, so we do work in the commercial business sector.
Right.
And so many of our customers are large retailers. We do work for companies like Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Starbucks, and many others all across the country. And, because many of the customers were shutting down their stores, we weren't able to go in and do work that we'd normally be doing. So that's the main reason that work, slowed down so much. But it looks like it's picking up again. And I'd say that now we're well above the 50% mark that I mentioned before. We're probably at 75% capacity. So we're slowly getting back to where we should be.
Yeah, everybody kind of is, hopefully very soon. It was reported in, this is something that I think a lot of GEO members, and I hear questions about this, an unfortunate consequence of the pandemic has been this increase in online advertising. And a lot of these ads are you know, in Business Insider called them predatory and harmful. But you have had to slow down or stop the in-person sales contact. So in that case, you know, how do we protect the public? What do we do? People will call me and say, and ask for, you know, a stamp of approval from GEO. I always give references. If someone calls and says they want a system, I'll give them the name of several of our business members. But you see these online ads, and the old adage that if it's, you know, it's too good to be true. What can we do to help people with those kinds of things?
Yeah, I'll jump in first here, Jane. If I had $1 for every call we've gotten where people want to access the new program, the new Ohio incentive, or the no-cost solar, you know, I would probably donate it to GEO on the 20th anniversary. And it'd be a hefty check because we get a lot of those calls. There's a lot of confusing information out there. It's showing up in people's Facebook feeds. They're advertising on Instagram, and you know, the digital marketplace has always been great. It's a great way for us to reach people and get the message out that clean energy works in Ohio. It's cost effective. But unfortunately, we've got this whole, I don't know, new rush of get rich quick bad actors that a lot of them are not in Ohio. They're from out of state. They're advertising to Ohio consumers, and they're making claims that are just not real. You can't go solar for no cost. You can do it, and it's cost effective. It pays for itself. But you know, once you click on that and get signed up, they're going to try to sell a system to you. They're going to try to sign you up for financing that's usually not in your favor, usually has very high interest rates and high costs. There's a lot of things that, you know, we've been doing this for 20 years. We want to do it for another 20 plus, and we want to be honest with our clients and all the members of GEO, the business community that are vetted and join GEO, also have the right approach, the high integrity approach. But some of these new players are really confusing the marketplace, and I think we should, you know, shut it down, or at least get the word out that, you know, don't believe everything you read on the internet. If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. Is there any way we could establish some sort of good actors pledge, or, you know, is there something we could do in Ohio, GEO could help with, to really give the reputable installers a boost, as it were?
Yeah, you know, a number of industries organize and set up associations that, you know, you belong to, and you have to have, you know, credibility in the marketplace to become a member. And so that might be something for GEO to consider, Jane. I'm not yet aware of that, at least at the state level, but you know, every industry has these, and that would be one way to try to, you know, help consumers know who to, you know, look to for the facts.
Yeah.
But, you know, almost in every type of consumer market there's a certain amount of hucksterism out there, and we always have to be smart consumers and ask the right questions and make sure our sources are good. And, you know, I don't rely on Facebook for too much of any information unless I know the source. And so we always have to be vigilant, you know, against the bad actors out there.
Right. ASUS, the American Solar Energy Society, had put together a list of quite a few, I don't know, 50 questions you should ask your installer. And maybe we'll put those on our website. That kind of thing could be useful. The hardest calls I get are those from people who feel that they have been, you know, taken advantage of. And what can I do how can I help you? You know, there's really nothing I can do at that point. But I do hear from those people. Jeff, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Steve, one of the things he said, I'm a member of the board of directors of NABCEP, and that's our kind of industry technical standard. Some of his employees have NABCEP certifications. Most of the good, solid contractors in the solar space get the NABCEP standard. And NABCEP has a professional integrity threshold and has kicked some people out of the group. I would say at the state level, Green Energy Ohio might consider some kind of a professional ethics endorsement or certificate that is, you can qualify for it until your actions disqualify you for it. And that might be something that would be another value that GEO brings to the table, along with just the public education, because Steve has been around enough, and some of the GEO members remember the booming solar water heating business in the Carter era, with generous tax credits and generous incentives that again brought in the bad actors and created all sorts of scams and bad technology that eventually gave the industry a bad name. And we don't want some of those folks that are calling you that maybe have been, they weren't, they didn't qualify for a tax credit because they were on Social Security level income, but some, huckster convinced them that they would be getting a tax credit back. We don't want those sad stories to give solar a bad name. Right now,
Right.
Solar needs every little thing we can do to get more and more people to go solar for the good of the planet, for the good of the local economy, and just to modernize our energy system. And those bad apples are going to bring down the rest of us if we don't do something to stop it.
Yeah. Thank you both. That is something that we will, I will take to our board and we'll think about. And I should mention that both Melink and Third Son are longtime members, business members of Green Energy Ohio. And Steve served on our board, and one of his top folks serves on our board now. And Michelle Greenfield was president of the board for some period of time. So both of you have long histories with the organization, and I really, really appreciate that. Before, I'm going to ask another few questions, but I want to encourage people to get their question in the queue, because the last time we ended up with quite a few questions at the end of the hour, and we weren't necessarily able to get to all of them. So if you have questions, and I think we have a couple already in, but write them down, raise your hand, and then in a few minutes we will we'll go there. Hi, Steve, you mentioned your new campus. I attended a conference quite a few years ago, and it was the first time I had seen your campus. And I remember I took a picture of the wind turbine, and it was very impressive, but you've done a lot since then. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the new headquarters building and all the other bells and whistles that you have put down there.
Sure. The first big step we took towards trying to walk the talk on sustainability was to design and build the first LEED Gold certified office building in Ohio. That was in 2005. And that started us on a whole new journey. Not only was it LEED Gold certified, but we elevated to LEED Platinum, existing building, and then we continued to make improvements to it, and it became a net zero energy facility. And as we've continued to grow, see, that's a 30,000 square foot building. As we've continued to grow, we decided that we needed to have a second building. And so we basically doubled the size of the campus just in the last year. So we built a second 30,000 square foot building, and we wanted to take what we did at HQ1 to a whole new level. And we really wanted to show that zero energy buildings can be designed and built affordably. And what do I mean by affordable? That it can be done at a small premium that would make people say, well, everybody should be doing this. So for our building, we spent about 15% more above and beyond a conventional office building. and we were able to take it more than net zero energy. We're sending green power back to the grid more than we probably should be right now. But in our various analyses, we've been able to show that we could have done what we wanted to do at a cost premium of less than 10%. So the moral of the story is that if we can design and build a building that's net zero energy at a cost premium of less than 10% above and beyond a conventional building, why isn't everybody doing this? So I want this to be a message of empowerment to everybody out there, for your homes, for the buildings in which you work, and or you might be going to school. This isn't some 10, 20, 30-year kind of a pipe dream kind of thing. This is stuff that we can do today. So we hope that anyone listening might be interested and curious enough to want to come by and see our super green campus.
Well, you mentioned school, and I understand that the two of you are both involved with a project at Kent State University. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Geoff, go ahead if you'd like to.
Yeah, sure. First off, take Steve up on the tour. We went to visit his building right after he built it, and it was inspirational. Steve's one of my friends and also a mentor and inspiration to a lot of people. And the campus is beautiful. And we continue to work with commercial clients and point them towards clean energy. Steve, just real quick, that 10% premium, if you wrap it into the financing at today's low interest costs, it's really not a premium. You're building a building that doesn't have an electric bill.
Well, in fact, that was something else we wanted to show, is that this can be financed through a vehicle called PACE, Financing Property Assessed Clean Energy. And so really that premium is being paid for by an assessment on our property taxes. So that's another kind of moral of the story. And because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to have a grand opening yet, but we hope to have one in October and kind of announce to the world more officially, all these lessons learned and opportunities really for anybody that lives in a home or works in a building of any type.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. The moral of the story is, yeah, solar works in Ohio, and it's a today technology. It's not a tomorrow technology. It's cost effective today, even if you don't care about climate change in your lungs. If you just care about the green benefits of the bottom line, that's fine. It works. It's a great investment. So the Kent State University project, we had done a project for Kent State University maybe 8 years ago, a power purchase agreement. And they love solar and they want to do stuff for solar for a variety of reasons. Universities and colleges all like solar. They all want to do it. And so they looked at their regional campuses, and they've got 7 regional campuses, and they did an RFP and wanted to get the very best team, the best price. And we knew that it was going to be a lot of work, and we had a lot of respect for the Melink team. And so we joined together, and we're taking on rooftop stuff that we're really good at. And the Melink team is working on a bunch of ground mounts, and we kind of split the campuses up, and it's going into construction this summer. It's going to be a neat showpiece another neat showpiece for Ohio, just showing everyone that clean energy is cost effective and makes sense beyond the environmental attributes. I don't know, did I leave anything out, Steve?
Well, I don't think so, but I just read this morning, and this kind of goes along with the message you just shared, Geoff, is that renewable energy costs are plunging to such a point that they are now projecting that we could have 90% renewable energy in the country by the year 2035.
I saw that.
And so in 15 years, imagine very possibly solar and wind and hydro and other renewable energy technologies could be powering the American economy.
I just want to have a quick plug here because our academic conversation, which is coming up in July, we will have Melanie Knowles from Kent State, who is the sustainability manager at Kent State University, on our call, on our meeting. So this was a great promo for that Kent State is doing these great things. And, you know, universities are facing some really tough times trying to figure out how to manage classes and enrollments and budgets. And so it's really important that this kind of project continues, I think. So I am going to, if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to start taking a couple of questions. We have one question that says, what role should oil and gas companies play in the transition to renewables?
Well, I'll just start out in saying that certainly has a role to play in the transition to renewables, but clean energy is the way of the future. In the next 10, 15, 20 years at most, we have to transition to a 100% clean energy economy. The economics will drive that, our security and our health and our environment, you know, all the issues relating to those will drive it. You know, we have already seen that the coal industry has nearly collapsed. And just in the last few months, you know, the oil industry is going through some tumultuous times right now. And, you know, I think that the fossil fuel industry had its day in the, you know, or its century, I guess you'd say, in the 20th century. But the economy of the 21st century belongs to clean, renewable energy. Yeah, you know, I've got family members who've been involved in the fossil fuels and utilities that have burned coal. And so, believe me, this is something that is close to me as a family member, that, you know, I'm out pushing, promoting clean energy. But they all see the writings on the wall, where they can see where the future is. You know, the signs are becoming increasingly clear. So I don't think it's just a belief. I think it's increasingly seen as a, you know, a very likely forecast of the future.
Yeah, Steve, I can't emphasize that enough. I remember, you know, when BP tried to rebrand as Beyond Petroleum, right?
Yes.
We actually have installed some BP modules that they bought a technology and were making modules. And then also Shell, a huge global conventional fossil fuel company, also got into the module making space. But unfortunately, these large energy companies have tried to diversify and have tried to pivot into clean energy, and some good actors, some good efforts just were thrown out. The CEO, you know, of one of the companies was forced out by the board because he was trying to move the company towards the future. And if you asked me 10 years ago, what role would these conventional fossil fuel industries companies have, I would say we need their capital. We need them to invest in the R&D. We need them to invest in manufacturing. We need them to invest in financing large projects. That's not true anymore. The conventional financing markets, Wall Street, the global finance markets, all the institutional investors, all the big funds, they have quickly moved towards clean energy, and they see how huge of an opportunity it is. And so there's no question about financing. If you're a solid clean energy company that wants to build a big factory, wants to move a factory to the United States, wants to build large solar farms, people are fighting for the chance to invest in your opportunity based on its merits and its, you know, is it a better clean energy or a less better clean energy technology? But the whole question of access to capital has been addressed. I think that these large old school companies are going to get left in the wake as fuel with no fuel cost. It's as reliable as the sun rising every morning, takes over. And that's what we're watching right now. It's an exciting time to be in the space.
And I would just like to say that, you know, this isn't just an opportunity for these big companies to lead the future kind of a thing. It's just as much a consumer opportunity to capitalize, save energy, save money. So, for example, you know, I'm thinking of electric cars. That's the way of the future. And so, if you're in the market for a used or a new car, please seriously consider electric. You're by voting with your pocketbook, you can help turn a movement into a revolution. And so everybody on this call has an opportunity to help speed up this transition that we're going through. And it even can be, you know, a decision on whether to put solar on your roof, or when you upgrade your HVAC system, consider geothermal, for example. Or if you, let's say you can't afford geothermal at this time, at least try to transition away from conventional gas-fired equipment. So rather than a traditional gas furnace for heating your home, switch to an electric heat pump, an air source heat pump. And by moving our economy to an all-electric one, then we can power that all-electric economy with solar and wind, rather than burning gasoline for our cars and burning natural gas for heating our homes.
Steve brought up electric vehicles, and actually Green Energy Ohio is planning a sort of a tour around the state next spring, and recreating something that GEO did in 2012. But my question for both of you, and I have a CRV, a Honda CRV with 330,000 miles on it, and I would like to get a new car. Do I do a hybrid? And Honda's coming out with a hybrid CRV. You know, what's the hybrid versus EV? Steve's just dying to tell me what to buy, and well, I can't afford a Tesla. So
we have an incentive for our employees. We try to help them make that pivot towards all electric cars. So it used to be that we were providing an incentive for hybrid cars like a Toyota Prius, but that was years ago. And now the electric car market has, you know, become mainstream to where now we provide an incentive for them to go that way. So, you know, we have probably 20 employees that are driving Teslas, and you know, I know they're often thought of as really kind of, you know, very expensive, but they've got the Model 3, which is really meant to be a more of a mainstream type of car for everybody. So most of the cars that our employees are going toward is the Model 3, which I think the street price is probably around $40,000. But you know, increasingly there's going to be a used car market out there, and more of the manufacturers are bringing electric cars. Seems like every month I'm reading about another electric car coming onto the market. So I guess my recommendation, Jane, would be to make the leap towards the future rather than into the present, kind of a thing. That would be, if you can. And again, the used car market is almost as, you know, competitive, you know, with gasoline cars. So anyway,
that's it's an exciting time, and I think electric vehicles are something that we really need to spend more time talking about. And infrastructure is a huge issue when it comes to that. And the one reason why Teslas are so popular is because they have their own charging network. But we need to encourage the state and national government to look at installing infrastructure for charging. We've got a couple of questions that relate to policy. And this is a great one. What are some of the policies you would like the state of Ohio to implement or to remove in order to advance the clean energy industry? What is this? Is the status of the federal tax credit program? What about net metering in Ohio? You know, we think right now it's unfortunate we have a state government that has not been supportive of this industry, and yet the industry continues to grow, which is absolutely the good news. But policies are important, and it doesn't, what can we do? What do we need, if anything, and what is the likelihood that we would get it?
Yeah, I think that's, on the one hand, we're growing and we're doing, we're doing what we're doing, and it feels good. But we've got a cooperative that we're a part of called Amicus. And so I've got very close peers, I call them amici or cousins, that are in all the other markets across the country, every state in the nation. We're doing probably close to $800 million worth of solar. And I hear from them about how their state policies work and how their state regulatory environment, if not supporting solar, at least isn't working against solar. And I just think, gosh, if we're scrambling and working as hard as we are here in Ohio and doing what we're doing, despite all the policy against us, just imagine how much more progress we could make if we had, if not policy that supported us, at least policy that's not fighting against us. And unfortunately, in Ohio and in the Midwest, we're getting policy that's right now, at least, not in the citizens' best interest, but clearly in the best interest of shareholders, a lot of them out of state, many of them out of the country, of the large utility companies. The worst case I can point to is the nuclear bailout for the Cleveland the First Energy company up north that begged about getting us some support and getting a bailout. Otherwise, they're going to close, and the grid's going to be falling apart, and the world will end. And lo and behold, after getting the legislation passed that they wanted, they go back and give almost that same amount of money back to their shareholders in a buyback.
Yeah.
So I want a free market. I want solar to be able to compete freely with fossil fuel industry. And I'm not asking for a subsidy for solar. Just take away some of the market protection and monopolistic protections for fossil fuels. Take away more and more of the utility bill tariffs that have fixed costs and fixed fees and KW charges that make solar less and less and less of an economic slam dunk, and protect more and more of the entrenched old school dinosaur energy costs. So that's one thought. I could go on, but I got some input too.
Yeah.
And I would just add to that, the federal investment tax credit for a number of years had been at 30%. It is gradually being wound down over the next several years, down to, I think, 10%. It was 30%, now it's 26%. It'll go down next year again. So, that...
Steve, that 10% is going to stabilize for commercial. For residential, it goes to 0.
Yeah, okay. So, that subsidy, if you will, is going away because the solar industry has reduced its cost to the point it really doesn't need that type of help from the government. But I mean, to answer the question on policy, I agree that we don't want any policies that hurt renewables, but it sure would be nice to have something that would recognize where the, that infamous saying by Wayne Gretzky, where's the puck going? Skate to where the puck is going. If we had smart legislators that would look to the future and let's design policy that recognizes that future and seizes the opportunities, so many of which pertain to the clean energy. Again, economic development, national, global security, health, environmental risks and costs that are becoming increasingly obvious. So, we did have I think, a very healthy RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard in Ohio. It was 25% by 2025. That's been pretty much dismantled, but gosh, I sure would love to see Republicans and Democrats come together, see the future, and design a smart policy that says, let's get to 100% renewables by, well, at this point in time, I'd say 2030, because I just mentioned that there's a prediction that will be 90% renewables by 2035. So let's use government to help us get there sooner and say,
Yeah.
go for
Well,
2030.
It's happening. It's happening nationally and globally. I think we're at risk of Ohio being left behind. And I think that this is not a left or right or Democratic issue. This is an Ohio issue. And I think really people that are pro-business, pro-economic development, pro-progress can see the future and doesn't want Ohio to miss out on these jobs and the technology innovation that we're known for. We're kind of laughed at by other states that are getting big factories and lots of job creation. We're at risk of really being left behind, and it's embarrassing.
And I think that's one thing that we talk about when we talk to policymakers and decision makers. Some of them respond to that economic argument that this is building a new industry with new opportunity. The tax benefits that come from wind farms, and we're not talking specifically about wind today, but the resistance to wind in Ohio and some of the things that have happened recently are very troubling. Somebody did ask about net metering. Neither of you touched on that, but that is something that a lot of residential customers care about and count on when they're making decisions. So I don't know if you want to just briefly touch on that, or
Go ahead,
You're
Geoff.
talking about the attacks on net metering?
yeah, I think so. I'll
Sure,
have to look
Steve,
at the exact
you
question.
want to talk about that, or I've got some thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not too knowledgeable on, if you just said a tax on net metering, but clearly the utilities want to make money on people sending power back to the grid. And if anything, it should be seen as a subsidy to them that we're putting power back on their grid that they can then redistribute and sell to another customer. So, number one, we're sending power back to the grid, and then the utilities want to, assess fees for allowing us to attach to the grid to do that. So it just is another kind of a backwards way of thinking, I think. And instead, I wish that, that the policymakers were looking at an opportunity to create a grid that is more resilient and more designed like the internet, if you will, of thousands and millions of nodes that can never take the internet down. But right now, with our reliance on central power plants to feed our homes and businesses with power, we've already seen in the past what can happen if something happens with a plant going down. So there's a lot of security benefits to going towards a more distributed renewable energy model than a central power plant model.
Yeah. I think I said it too fast. It's not a tax like TAX on net metering as much as it is a tax, ATACKS. Right now, a very nefarious and shadowy group hiding behind a 50c3 out of state, but it's pretty much utility backed, is making efforts to take Ohio's right to determine our own net metering rules and make that into a centralized federal piece, the FERC or FERC. So there's a lot of calls to action from nonprofits, et cetera, saying that solar is under attack. We wrote a blog on this. It's too deep to get into here. Maybe Caitlin can put a link up to it in the chat, and we can link to it later on.
And we can also do that, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, Ohio's already gone. We've already been attacked, And we've already had pure residential, $1 in, $1 out, net metering reduced to, if you avoid purchasing energy, you save money. If you export energy, you get remunerated at a smaller amount for the net excess generation. So that by itself has made the economics in Ohio a little bit less favorable than the economics in other states where you can do net metering and be rewarded by exporting power. So lots of little things there. My takeaway is that the sky is not falling in Ohio. We've already gotten this hit, but possibly if this FERC approach won, that same group could then eviscerate your ability to go solar. And we'd be stuck with a system where, like Tennessee has right now, where in Tennessee, if you want to go solar, you have to put 2 meters on your house and you can't export power.
Wow.
On the other hand, people are going with batteries, and there's the whole phenomenon called grid defection. So I'm reminded of that, I think it was Gandhi is attributed, but that, you know, first they mock you and then they fight you and then you win. I think we're at the point where they're fighting us, they're taking us seriously, and we're really a threat to their monopoly business model. And some of them are adapting and getting into that transmission and distribution business that you described, Steve. That's the future. Someone's got to take care of the lines, but fighting over the monopoly and trying to protect the business model that, you know, made you money over the last 100 years is going to be a losing proposition as technology evolves.
Thank you. There were a couple of questions about financing. One of you mentioned PACE financing. Some are more and more customers asking about PACE. Does Third Sun offer one-stop shopping for financing? And are local jurisdictions embracing residential PACE solar? So those are different questions, but all sort of related, and I will let you decide how to answer them.
Steve, if you want to talk about PPAs, I'll talk about the resi side.
Well, on the commercial side, there's a financing tool called PPA, Power Purchase Agreement. So it's where a developer owns the system that might be on the building rooftop, for example, and sells power to the host at that building, just like a mini utility kind of a thing. So we become like a mini Duke in doing that kind of a financing, taking that financing approach. But another thing that I tell everybody, and I hope everyone on this call at least takes away this as an opportunity, that even if for whatever reason you can't put a solar PV system on your roof, at the very least what you can do is call your utility provider and say, I want to subscribe to the green power option. You no longer have to be a victim of how they generate their power. You tell them what kind of power you want. I want green power. Now you go out to market and secure for me that green power. So again, I want to empower all of us as consumers. Let's be smarter. Let's not put ourselves in the back seat and instead in the driver's seat to forcing this this clean energy revolution. And the premium of that is, I would say on average it might be a half a cent per kilowatt hour, which for the average home amounts to the price of a cup of Starbucks coffee. So I think most of us on this call, should be of the mind that I can afford that cost in order to say I'm doing the right thing for our country, for our world, for our economy, security, environment, all these things. It's a small price to pay for all of us to do the right thing.
And before Geoff, if I could just jump in there and say that Green Energy Ohio and AEP Energy, which is the unregulated subsidiary, we have an arrangement where if any customer switches to their Eco Advantage program, which is wind, but it is their green offering, GEO gets $35 or $30, 35 I think, I should know that, from that customer signing up if they mention GEO. So And that's a program that we really need to, I think you're absolutely right. We need to make sure people know that's available. We have competition in this state. We have, you know, your generation is your decision, where you get your generation. And we should all be making that decision.
Yeah, it's close to the same price, but you've got to raise your hand and say, this is important to me and I want it. You know, our building is net zero, my home is net zero, but we are grid tied. And so the green or the power that I use at nighttime or in the winter is coming from that green mix. And that's, you know, primarily coming from out of state wind, but more and more we're building these large multi-megawatt scale farms in rural parts of Ohio. So we're going to actually have Ohio solar power going into the grid
Right.
to go to the various houses. On the question about residential and one-stop shop, the majority of our customers are, you know, writing a check for $15,000 or $25,000 to get their residential system. Some of them are tapping into their home equity line of credit, very low interest rates these days, and you can write off your taxes, your interest rather. And then more and more people just want to go solar for a monthly payment. Just like Steve mentioned, a mini utility on their rooftop. We're not used to basically building a big power plant that's going to last 100 years and then having energy come to our house. We're used to paying every month for our energy. People are used to that. And so that whole concept of a monthly payment is gotten very popular with solar residential customers who basically want to say, hey, how much would it cost me to go solar? I really want to go solar. It's the right thing to do. My kids will think I'm a hero. The neighbors will think I'm really cool. I'll have power in a blackout. All those reasons why people want the technology, but they don't have, you know, $20,000 or $18,000 to drop on it right now. For those people, we do have one-stop shopping now that's really easy. We've got a credit union that, again, my wife and our CEO, Michelle Greenfield, helped start. She's on the board of directors, the Clean Energy Credit Union. It serves customers nationally, and they'll actually finance your Tesla. If you want to buy an electric car, they will finance that at very competitive rates. And if you want to go solar, we can set it all up. You don't have to go get an appraisal or anything. We can finance your solar system with a credit union monthly payment, zero down. So little bit of optionality for wherever people are on their journey to solar.
That's great. That's great information. And we will post some of the, you know, we've mentioned a lot of different programs and options, and we'll make sure and put some of that on our website. We are at about 10 after. We have one question that I think is interesting. Which states are leading the way in supporting and encouraging both residential and commercial in the Midwest? I mean, we always think about California, we think about, you know, states that have a different maybe political environment or even physical environment, but in the Midwest, who do you think is leading the way?
I think in recent maps that I've seen of where there's the most renewable energy deployed, I think increasingly it's coming from Indiana, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, all the states surrounding Ohio. So I don't know if that's, you know, the latest and greatest. Geoff might have, you know, insight on that. But again, I think it's Ohio has turned from being a leader to being a follower, and really not even a follower. We're being a, you know, kind of a force of resistance in a way to embracing this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I agree with you. So notice those states have the same weather pattern, the same number, you know, amount of sunlight as Ohio. So it's not about sunshine. As far as the policy that's really driving fast growth and adoption, Illinois has decided that they want their state to be ahead. They want their state to not rely on the old-fashioned kind of energy, but want to get ready for that next century. And so they've got a state incentive that makes it very affordable for residential and commercial projects to go forwards. And my friends who have businesses in Illinois are hiring, every single day of the week if they could. They've got open positions that they're fighting to fill, and the job creation that's going on in Illinois is pretty amazing. The only other thing I'd say is that this is moving from, unfortunately, in my opinion, a state level phenomenon to even a micro level phenomenon. So we do have bright spots within Ohio, even though the state legislature has kind of let us down. Cleveland is charging ahead. Cuyahoga County is charging ahead. The city of Cincinnati is building 30 megawatts of solar. There's a lot of even smaller towns. The city of Athens and the SOPEC multi-county aggregation is doing lots of solar. So there's bright spots where local government is working to do what their citizens are demanding, what their citizens want. But unfortunately, the state government is doing what the financial donors are asking for today.
And I would just add that despite what the state has done to get in our way, again, the message I would want to leave with everyone on this call is one of empowerment. Businesses are making decisions, regardless of what the state policy is. They're increasingly investing in renewable energy. They're looking long term. They see that it's the way of the future. And so it's almost a politics be damned kind of a mindset. We're not going to be slowed down by, people who are still living in the past. So all of us as consumers, everyone on this call, can decide to live the lives that we choose and want. And so again, be empowered.
Right.
Vote with your dollars.
Yes, the market responds. Absolutely. And I think Geoff's point about local governments, I have people write to me and they're frustrated and they say, what can I do? And I say, work with your local government, get your city council to pass a resolution with goals and set up, community, so whatever it is. All politics is local, as Tip O'Neill said. I think our time is about up today. I think this has been a great discussion. We've had great engagement from our audience and great responses from our guests, and I think we could probably go on another hour, but we won't. So I want to thank Geoff and Steve very much for sharing their expertise with us today. I want to thank everyone who joined us. And our next conversation will be held on June 30th, and it will be with two representatives of nonprofits, Sarah Conley-Ballou from Rural Action, who also serves on the GEO board, and Tristan Rader from Solar United Neighbors. So there are a lot of nonprofits in Ohio that work very hard to educate, public education, and to advance the cause of clean energy. And we all work closely with the business community as well. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.